do this. Now before we start this video, here's a quick little intro shot entirely on the iPhone SE 2020.
In the corner of my best friend's sofa, you were getting buzzed on rum and cola. Wasn't brave enough yet just to talk to you. Not a smooth talker under pressure. Sweaty palms ain't making it much better. Something about you feels so special. Prettier from the minute that I met you.
That was a great intro, wasn't it? It was shot entirely on this little guy, the iPhone SE 2020. I have been using this phone for a few days now, and the number one thing that I have been testing extensively is the camera. This is because when I first got this phone, I compared its photos with the iPhone 11 and both of those were very similar, especially in terms of daylighting conditions. I've mentioned about this in my impressions video as well, that the iPhone SE 2020 and iPhone 11 are very close in terms of clicking photos and also shooting videos in terms of daylighting conditions, and that's why I wanted to test out the cameras further to their full potential and essentially make this video for you guys. So this is a full camera review of the iPhone SE 2020. Now this video is going to be easier than other phones out there because the iPhone SE comes with a single camera. Yes, a single camera on the rear side, but that does not mean that it's a bad camera. This is a classic example of you don't need multiple cameras to have a good camera experience. It's fun to have a wide angle perspective and a 2x telephoto zoom or even a macro camera. Like all those perspectives are fun, but none of that matters if you don't have a good primary camera. But I'm glad to say that the primary camera on the iPhone SE is actually pretty good. So it's a single 12 megapixel shooter with an aperture of f1.8. Now this is the same sensor that was present on the iPhone 8. So you might be thinking, iPhone 8, that's a couple of years old. So how does that hold up in 2020? Now we all know smartphone photography is not only about the camera hardware, but it has to do a lot with the computational part, which includes the DSP inside the processor and also the software part. This phone has the A13 Bionic chipset and Apple's new and improved software for their camera, and it clearly shows in the sample pictures. Let's start by talking about daylighting conditions. When it comes to daylighting conditions, the iPhone SE is a very capable camera. The colors are natural, they are not oversaturated, nor are they undersaturated. So typical Apple colors, the photo is very natural, and 95% of the times what you see in the photo is the actual scenario. That is how I like my photos. I do not like them oversaturated or over sharpened. None of those things are present on the iPhone SE 2020. It's a typical Apple camera with typical Apple colors. Apart from that, the dynamic range is very impressive. Apple has improved a lot in terms of their HDR software, and that clearly shows in this phone as well. The dynamic range is excellent. It's not like the photo is overexposed like some budget phones do. The exposure is perfect and you do get very good dynamic range almost every single time, and that is excellent. Now this is a 12 megapixel sensor. As compared to other phones out there, this is nothing, at least on paper. So we have 64 megapixel sensors and 108 megapixel sensors as well. But this is a classic example of megapixel does not matter. Even though the sensor is 12 megapixels, the photos are detailed. It's not like the photos are not detailed, and that clearly shows when you edit the photo in Lightroom. So when I was editing the photos shot on iPhone SE in Lightroom, I realized that there are a lot of details which have been preserved, and that is an excellent thing. So it's a pretty fun task taking photos on the iPhone SE and editing those photos right on the phone because of that powerful A13 Bionic chipset. Overall, when it comes to daylighting conditions, I love the iPhone SE. It shoots some really awesome pictures. Alright, let's move our attention towards portrait mode. Because of the A13 Bionic chipset, portrait mode is also very good on this phone. The edge detection is good, and so is the background blur. Portrait mode is good on the rear as well as the front camera. In fact, I really like the portrait selfies from this phone. They look very good, and I did not expect the front portrait selfies to be so good on the iPhone SE 2020. And there's one feature where you can change the aperture live on the screen. So the background blur and amount of light changes as you move the aperture slider, and that looks pretty cool. and it's a very good feature to have. So yeah, when it comes to portrait mode, this camera gets a thumbs up from my side. Now moving on, let's talk about artificial lighting conditions. So for example, if you're in a cafe and you want to shoot photos, the iPhone SE is a good camera for that. I thought that it wouldn't perform that good in terms of artificial lighting conditions, but it did a surprisingly good job. So I went to a cafe a couple of days ago, not to sit there, I was there to take my takeaway and I went. But while I was waiting there, I took a couple of shots and they turned out to be pretty good. I also tried taking some shots inside my house and my studio and they turned out to be pretty good. So when it comes to artificial lighting conditions, the iPhone SE did surprise me and it did a good job. Now this gets me towards more challenging conditions, and that is low lighting conditions. Low light photography on the iPhone SE is not that good. I wouldn't say it is bad, but it is not awesome as well, and that is because of the lack of night mode. So unlike iPhone 11, the iPhone SE does not come with a night mode. Apple could have given this phone a night mode because of the A13 Bionic, but they did not do so. They have reserved that feature for their higher end phones, and this is a typical Apple move. But anyway, as I was saying, low light photography is not that bad. To be completely honest, I was expecting the low light photos to be trash, but that was not the case. Low light photos were not bad. They surely lack detail that you would normally get with something like a night mode, but the photos aren't bad either. Like, they're good photos. I did edit one low light photo and post it on my Instagram, and it got a lot of likes. So there you have it. This is a very good example of what I'm saying. The photos aren't bad by any means. Next up, let's talk about that front camera. iPhone SE 2020 comes with a 7 megapixel front camera with an aperture of f2.2. Selfies from this phone are great. They have a lot of detail in them, the skin tones are natural, the dynamic range is excellent, and it's a very good front camera. So if you want to use this phone for Snapchat or Instagram stories or video calling or just taking selfies, if you like to do that, then yeah, this is a phone with a very good front camera. Now what about video shooting? You've seen the intro, the iPhone SE is a very capable phone when it comes to shooting videos. In fact, it is the best in its price segment. It can shoot in 4K up to 60 FPS, and the video shooting is best. Like, Apple is literally the best in this aspect. Apple phones, like Apple iPhones, can shoot the best videos out there, and that is just the truth. The dynamic range is excellent, the stabilization is next level, and this phone is the best video shooting phone in its price segment. You can take my word for it or any other reviewer's word for it. Any reviewer will tell you that this phone is excellent when it comes to shooting videos. Overall, to sum it all up, iPhone SE 2020 surprised me in terms of the camera experience. I had a very good time while taking photos and shooting videos with this phone. It did surprise me a lot. I was not expecting the iPhone SE to be so good, but it is a very good phone in terms of the camera experience. I would call the iPhone SE a mini iPhone 11 when it comes to the camera experience. Yes, it is a mini iPhone 11. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button before you go. It would mean the world to me. My name is Harsh Punjabi, and I'll see you guys in the next one.